So it looks like we may be getting Matchroom versus Queensbury 2. So everything boxing are reporting on a 5v5 Matchroom Queensbury apparently going to take place in Saudi Arabia. It's in the works for August, right? August in Saudi Arabia. Matchroom Queensbury 5v5. And he's saying that one of the fights on there is Anthony Yarde versus Callum Smith. This will be for the WBO interim light heavyweight title. So you'd be mandated to fight. I mean, imagine being your reward. Mandated to fight the winner of Beterbiev Bivol. That's a reward in of itself, isn't it? But that's one of the fights that's being listed. Now, have a look there on screen. That is footage of both guys' respective last fight. Got Anthony Yarde versus Lyndon Arter, you'll see just there on screen in about 20-30 seconds. You'll see clips of Callum Smith versus Joshua Buatsi. And with the Callum Smith Buatsi one, it was hard to find clips to keep in it because there were so many good ones. With the Anthony Yarde one, oh boy, that was a grind. I just said, right, just let the highlights speak for themselves. So you'll see that on screen for the next minute or so. And that kind of tells you where they're both at in their respective careers. You know, Callum Smith, there was a lot of questions about him going into the Joshua Buatsi fight. I questioned it. I said that if it was the Callum Smith that I thought could potentially turn up, then, you know, as in the best of Callum Smith, then he probably would win. But he'd lost to Artur Beterbiev quite devastatingly. And I did question his desire. I questioned how much was left in the tank. I questioned his hunger for battle. There was a lot of things I questioned about Callum Smith going into that Buatsi fight, and he answered them emphatically. I mean, it's not a question of how much is left in the tank. There's loads left in the tank. That's not even a question. Whereas Anthony Yarde, in victory, let's not about defeat, in victory, he hasn't impressed me since he fought Lyndon Arter in the rematch, not the trilogy fight, the rematch, back in 2021. It's a long time, people. It's a long time. Yes, he looked good in parts against Artur Beterbiev, which is difficult to do because if you take Callum Smith against Artur Beterbiev, they were both stopped. But Callum Smith was never in that fight. Like, he never had a sniff of a prayer of any moment in that fight. He was really well and truly beaten. Yarde was beaten as well. He was stopped obviously in 8 rounds. I think it was 8 rounds anyway. But he had moments there. He had moments where you just sat there and thought, oh, hang on a minute. Could something happen here? It never did. It never materialized. But the fact of the matter was he was a lot more competitive. And again, the old adage, styles make fights. Callum Smith, much more accomplished fighter than Anthony Yarde. Unquestionably. You know, resume, everything. Skill set, everything. But he did worse against Beterbiev. So, as I said, styles make fights. But that's the last impressive performance from Anthony Yarde 2 years ago. And he was in defeat. Since then, he's fought a couple of no-hopers. He fought a guy in, I think was it Ralph Vilkans was his name, who was meant to be a no-hoper on a boxer show in the Copper Box. And that ended up being very competitive. I mean, the knockdown, in many people's eyes, really won that fight for Anthony Yarde. And then he goes and he fights Lyndon Arter in the trilogy fight that no one wants to see. And yeah, he won the fight. But Arter did look good, looked very good in that fight at parts. But again, it wasn't anything to set the world alight. And you're talking Lyndon Arter European level. Is that fair to say, European level? And they're talking about Anthony Yarde being one of the best in the country, one of the best in the world. Well, he's not proved that against any world level fighter in victory. He's shown parts of it in defeat. And he had to go to the well against, no disrespect to Lyndon Arter at all, a European level type fighter. Whereas Joshua Buatsi, a man, Callum Smith, well, he had moments there where he looked, you know, a little bit like, oh, what's Buatsi doing? But he was the well-deserved winner. This is a guy that has tried to move mountains to fight Anthony Yarde. Anthony Yarde, just for whatever reason, you know, more so his team, I would imagine, haven't looked to do that fight. And they could have done it several times, you know, and it's just never materialised. Anthony Yarde is a guy who goes from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high. And there's not really an in-between, unless, of course, it's Lyndon Arter, who he's done 3 times. And he lost one of those fights. So it's a really weird one. It's a very good fight. It's a very competitive fight. But I've no faith whatsoever in Anthony Yarde. And I know I said that about Callum Smith. He proved me wrong. But Callum Smith, I was looking at him coming back from a devastating loss. I know he had a bit of a run out on one of Eddie Hearn's shows. I can't remember which one it was. But he had a bit of a run out low down the card. That doesn't tell you everything you need to know. It just tells you, okay, he's come back with a little nothing win. Anthony Yarde has been actually stepping up and still not looking amazing in step-ups. So I do question a lot about what's going on in there. I question his desire. I question a lot of things. This will undoubtedly be, with the exception of the 2 world title fights, the biggest fight he's been in. And again, it kind of, I would say, not necessarily following a similar path, that Anthony Yarde's been on, because Lyndon Arthur was no, he is no, gimme fight, certainly not. So to go from him to Callum Smith, it's it's a justifiable step up. The man's in his early to mid 30s. Like, we shouldn't be talking about justifiable step ups at this stage in his career. So this fight right here, I do like it. I think stylistically it's going to be very, very good. I do see how Anthony Yarde can win this fight, because I think he's the punching power. He's a bigger puncher, in my opinion, than Joshua Buatsi. I'd say it's much of a muchness, but I'd say Yarde probably does have a bit more concussive power there. I don't know how he's going to handle the pressure of Callum Smith and the engine that Callum Smith has. And Callum Smith is massive as well. Like, people talk about the size of Anthony Yarde. Callum Smith is massive, man. How he ever made 168, I will never know. And he's a big light heavyweight. He's a massive puncher. Massive puncher. Yarde has shown a good chin, to be fair. So there's a lot I like about this fight. I really do. But yeah, I mean, if Anthony Yarde does lose this, where's the fork? Because I'm getting ready to stick it in him if he does lose this. In terms of the 5v5, me and Yarde went for a shisha just there about an hour or so ago, and we were talking about this. Obviously, we were talking about this fight because we've seen it, and we were kind of like, who do you actually get in the 5v5? I mean, that's one of the fights done, but then you're like, who do you actually get? Because most of Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren's guys, who you conceivably would think would be on that show, are in action. Like heavyweights, Johnny Fisher is next week, Moses Helma is the week after. It's probably too big of a turnaround. Bam Rodriguez, Dalton Smith. You're kind of like, who do you actually get? I mean, this fight makes sense, but then you're like, well, what else do you really do? You might, there's very few. So I don't know if this 5v5 is going to have the same allure. It'll have appeal, but the allure of the first one, unless of course, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in August. Again, I'm reading this, I've written boxing, I've no insight. Unless of course, there's two heavyweights, big heavyweights, both guys' golden gooses are fighting. Again, I don't know that. I'm just speculating, because I'm just racking my brain trying to think who you do the 5v5 with this time. Because the first time around it was good. It wasn't alright. It was very good. But I'm just like, who do you do this time? I'm kind of racking my brain. Eddie Hearn has pretty much no heavyweights. Frank Warren has all them. Johnny Fisher, he would. If I look at Frank Warren's heavyweights that he could conceivably use, he ain't beating any of them. Even Joe Joyce, he ain't beating any of them. So that's a fight they're reporting on. Let's wait and see. I will keep a close eye on this August date in Saudi Arabia, because the 5v5 concept, I like it. I still can't see how Matchroom beat Queensbury. The depth of their stable, Queensbury, is just vastly superior to Matchroom. It just is. I mean, even if you think about last time, Eddie Hearn brought in 3 American guys. He brought in Amma Williams. He brought in Amma Williams. I'm trying to think who the other guys were. I only remembered them there a second ago. But Deontay Wilder was one, and Nick Ball, Raymond Ford. They all lost. Now, whether you dispute the Nick Ball decision, they all still lost. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough for Eddie Hearn this time around, but he might have some. I'd be picking Callum Smith to beat Anthony Yarde, just for the record. I will be doing that. So he might have one there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, people, I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Until next time, people. Peace.